Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Building on the remarks of my distinguished colleague there, I'd like to start by just emphasizing how important the Eastern Mediterranean has already become in being a supplier of energy, not just for local use in the surrounding countries, but regionally as well, particularly to Europe, and especially of natural gas. I last attended the Economist Summit here 4 years ago before moving on to roles that took me away from this region. Very glad to be back and reflecting on an enormous amount of progress in the Eastern Med in just those 4 years. In that period, new developments of gas have come on stream or are under construction that have taken gas production from around 70 billion cubic meters per year, or 7 BCFD in old money, to around 90 billion cubic meters per year in just a few years from now. Significant progress. We were about, as I last spoke here, to drill our first couple of exploration wells, making the Glaucus discovery with the second of those. Pleased to report that we successfully appraised that discovery earlier this year, including a very successful well test and some new seismic acquisition to help delineate and allow the development planning of that discovery. We also picked up additional acreage offshore Cyprus. We've now also picked up 2 blocks offshore Egypt, and we're working with Hellenic 2 blocks which we operate offshore Greece. So the region's becoming a lot more important for my company as well. Our own Glaucus discovery has been joined by recent discoveries offshore Cyprus by the Eni-operated Calypso and Kronos discoveries. If you add those resources to the discoveries made, some recent discoveries made offshore Israel and Egypt, just in the last 3 or 4 years, an additional 10 trillion cubic feet, or around 250 billion cubic meters of gas have been discovered, which is encouraging also for future exploration. So this ability, the importance of the Eastern Mediterranean in supplying energy is super important as we navigate and face 2 energy challenges. The first of these is the energy transition. This is the need to supply the world with ever more energy to its growing population and meeting growing economic aspirations, while simultaneously reducing the CO2 emissions resulting from that energy production. Energy transition has been underway for many years, and it will take many decades to play out. And natural gas is playing and will continue to play a very important role in that transition, as I'll expand on shortly. But we're also, as this conference has touched upon multiple times, facing a nearer-term energy supply shortage, an energy crisis. It's driven by a number of factors, including, but not limited to, the economic rebound following the worst of the COVID pandemic, and of course, Russia's invasion of Ukraine. This is impacting millions and millions of people around the world. It's damaging economies. It's actually also reversing progress towards the energy transition, as a number of countries, including some in Europe, that formerly burn natural gas for power generation have had to switch to burning coal or heavy sulfur fuel oil, with the consequent increase in emissions as a result. I don't think any of us would think of this as the age of coal, but 2022 is on track to record the highest ever production of coal in human history. Why do I stress the importance of natural gas in the energy transition? Natural gas has played and continues to play a significant role in substituting for coal over recent decades, particularly in the United States and parts of Europe. Natural gas, when burned for power generation, emits less than half the CO2 emissions and none of the particulates that come from burning coal. Secondly, natural gas is also acting as a reliable and fast-reacting backup and partner of intermittent wind and solar power in many countries. But natural gas will also play, and is also playing, a role as a future source of hydrogen via the so-called blue hydrogen route, removing the carbon from the methane molecule, burying that underground, often synergistically with industrial CO2 emissions, and then using the hydrogen to fuel industrial processes. You burn hydrogen, you produce only water vapor. So continued supply over the long term of natural gas will help kickstart hydrogen infrastructure across Europe and beyond. But back to the recent energy supply crisis, we're seeing a number of reactions across the region, and Europe in particular. Governments are cutting energy demand, energy use, restarting previously mothballed coal-fired power stations in several countries, extending the life of nuclear power stations that were scheduled to shut down in the near future. Also, a strong emphasis on filling gas storage ahead of this coming winter, which is actually slightly ahead of plan. We're also seeing some very pragmatic fast-tracking of permitting for a range of gas import projects, particularly in Germany, which is progressing no fewer than 10 LNG import terminal projects. Now, these are near-term responses to the energy crisis. The development of new gas resources in the Eastern Med cannot react on a month's time frame, but do offer a solution more in the medium term. But they will need appropriate government support. The discoveries that I mentioned earlier, offshore Cyprus, Israel, and Egypt, these recent discoveries are relatively small when you compare them to the giants that we know so well, like Zohr and Leviathan. These are on average about 1/10 of the size. We're finding these fields now further and further from shore, typically in deeper and deeper water. So this won't be low-cost gas to develop. It'll require billions of dollars investment to bring these resources to market. And that'll require government support, appropriate fiscal terms, and some security of demand as well. With those provisions in place, though, I'm confident that these new discoveries that we've made recently can be brought into development, further strengthening the Eastern Mediterranean's role in supplying energy and contributing to decarbonization goals. I look forward to any of your questions. Thank you.